All right, it's just not. The subway car is very like Subway like. Today we're going to be taking a look at the somewhat recently released Qwen3.6 Max Preview. Now this model came out about 2 weeks ago, and because the massive amount of releases that happened in that span was a little overwhelming, I kind of like it slipped under the radar, but I did want to get a test done for this, as the Qwen3.6 Max model is kind of interesting, or I should say the Qwen Max models, because unlike a lot of the other Qwen models, these are not open weight. So this is a closed source proprietary model that Alibaba offers under the Max name, and this was something that existed prior to this specific 3.6 variant. There were earlier versions of this, and this is a big behemoth of a model. I don't know off the top of my head specifically how many parameters this is, but I really do believe this is over 1 trillion parameters. So this is a big state-of-the-art closed source model from Alibaba Cloud, and therefore it's pretty interesting to test. But in this testing, I do want to kind of predominantly mention that because we're going to want to compare it to other models that are also in that same category, I guess could be said. Now this announcement release post is really very light in terms of detail and things like that. This does appear to be an early preview, as they make note of, but really the models that I'm going to be interested in seeing how this compares to output-wise would be things like Gemini 3.1 Pro, GPT-5.5, or Opus 4.7. which is the one we're on now. So with that, we're going to take a really quick peek at some of the pertinent information about this model, then we'll jump into some fun and light testing. So before we get into it, two things I want to address. One is feel free to subscribe because I want that 100K plaque, so maybe next time I get into the OpenAI 5.5 party. But second to that, I have noticed some prompt fatigue in the comments where basically folks are like, all right, Bijan, I'm getting a little bored about some of the things you're doing. That has happened previously, and it led to wonderful things like the browser OS test and the C++ skate game test. So I have proposed a new prompt that I'm working on, and I do basically just want to run it by people to see if this is something you'd be interested in or not, so I can it if it's bad. But essentially it would be like a little IT help desk simulation where you just plug a model into it through API or whatever, and it logs the actual cost for each call as well as the current context length. So it'll be a way to properly test agentic capabilities of models over significantly longer context, and essentially the model would have to handle an automated or simulated IT help desk to actually field and respond to tickets and different folks. We would implement something to test its memory of interactions as well. So if that sounds like something interesting, I will find a succinct way to include it into the regular suite of tests as a better way to test longer context tool calling capabilities and more agentic, like over proper functional workload. So let me know what you think of that, and if it's cool, I will continue building it and include it. So back to Qwen3.6 Max Preview, we can see right here there is the traditional benchmark JPEG, and to be honest with you, really the thing I'm interested in seeing right here, I suppose, would be some comparison of the leaping capabilities over other Qwen models, but the plus ones are smaller. Additionally to that, GLM 5.1 is open weight, so really 5.4.5 Opus from Anthropic right here is the one that I want to see this stacked up against. We do also have some technical specifications of the model, of course, in terms of pricing and other things. So this is only text in and text out. This is not a multimodal model. A lot of the Qwen3.6 models are natively multimodal, where they can see images, they can see videos even now too. This one cannot. And this is a relatively expensive to use model comparatively to what one might expect, coming in at $1.30 per million input and $7.80 per million output. In terms of our context length, that would have been significantly easier for me to read those figures down here, but that's okay. In terms of our specific context length and things like that, we have a maximum context window of 256 and a maximum output of 64K. Now, I should note that it was also mentioned in the introductory post right here. It supports the preserved thinking feature, so I did get this hooked up and working in OpenCode, which we can see here by its acknowledgement of my sup bro, and I do just everything's properly set up there. So keep that in mind in terms of like the sampling parameters and the specific like preserved thinking. So to begin, we're just going to start this from the general web chat interface, as I still like using models through this interface. I predominantly use Gemini 3.1 Pro through the web chat interface. We can see that Qwen3.6 Max Preview is selected here, and we do have it set to the thinking capability mode. Now we have a succinct kind of TLDR of what specifically it is doing in its reasoning process, which does expand to the side here so we can see a bit more pertinent information. I should note this is of course the browser OS test v2.0 3.5, that was a pretty quick thinking process where it needs to create a browser OS with 5 applications, 2 of which must be functional 3D games, one of which needs to be a GTA clone, the ability to change wallpaper, and a special feature that it decides on and implements on its own. So honestly, this browser OS has been going so slow. Did it really just finish as I said that? Okay, no, it didn't. It's been going so slow that I have gone ahead and also simultaneously begun the self-contained C++ skateboarding game, the late 90s California aesthetic style version in OpenCode, just initially in plan mode. I would imagine this will take quite a bit of time, so this is a result that I wanted to start now, as I am expecting it to be equally as slow as... Anyway, good. We have our browser OS now. So finally, after 2,371 lines of syntax, we are now going to take a look at our Qwen3.6 Max Preview browser OS. Okay, so these are things we saw in the enter password. Hint, just press what? Oh, okay, we inferred it was just press enter. Good. We have annoying little notification pop-ups in the top right, which do exist in real operating systems, Mac OS, and that does infuriate me. So we can see that we do have the correct date and time in the locale I am currently in, which is just outside of Boston. And then there is also some little icons here for batteries and laptop things. Now, I did preemptively almost like reflexively check, it's been a long night, check the right-click option, and it did exist. Certainly a very good one. Let's take a look at our start menu first and foremost. Okay, and it does have the application search feature, basically everything that's buttering me up. I'm also noticing significantly more than 5 applications. Now, we are going to just run through them sequentially, of course, so, which I always like to do. Ugh, you disgusting! I said 3. I was quite enraged due to the fact that the prompt specifically outlines this must be a 3D representation of this game. Nonetheless, we'll take a look. Okay, so I do notice there are some cars there. There are headlights. I mean, Oh, that's attacking me back. Interesting. This is, I mean, this is like the early GTA style. E is to enter and exit a vehicle. Can we... All right, you... It's just not... I mean, instruction following here, I need to double check because, I mean... Must be functional 3D games. Okay, so, I mean, are we in the police car now? No, okay, so the enemy logic is just that the police car spawns right directly on top of us when we are being chased. I don't actually know what to make of that. That was certainly something. This was an interesting take on this. I've not seen a 2D one before, being that I specifically tell it to do 3D. But I will say... This is creative. We even have a mini-map which actually really nicely shows the grid outline of the city. Can we full screen? Yes, we absolutely can. Can we minimize to the taskbar and reopen? Good. Let's check our other game. Okay, this is equally 3D as the other one. Oh no, this one's actually a little more 3D, but barely. Again, another space shooter, so really every model I think I've tested except HY3 did the second game as a space game. This one is no different. Kind of neat, actually. Still very 2D, though. Nonetheless, let's check our terminal. Okay, type help for available commands. I would imagine there will be a large list. Calc. Okay, so we can open apps from in here. Let's check our file manager. Personal notes. Try the GTA clone. So we have some real fake files in here. Pictures, wallpapers. Aw. Next up, our text editor, which is already open because we had opened some of these. Bold and italicized. I feel like I've seen these before, but pretty infrequently. Okay, so not super functional, but it did actually save it as a text file to our local system, which is, you know, sometimes we get that. That's good to see. All right. Following that, we have our abacus icon calculator. My brain's probably not, like, I've been up for quite a while. Let's just do 47 times 55. Why did I do that? That's not the normal. 5 times 9, 45. Times 8, 360. Times 6, 1980. Web browser. I always get so excited when I see my own products. I shouldn't say products. That's not what I meant. Projects, because this isn't monetized. So, but this is of course my website where you can upload and play games and things like that. It looks good in here. We have a browser in the browser OS. Settings we have not done. I've never actually seen 12 selectable wallpaper options, all equally kind of boring gradients. Media player. I don't think it's gonna actually play media, but I have a speaker. No, that was a letdown because it looked like it was going to. All right, so I just saw a special feature 3D desktop mode. Oh. Mouse to rotate, click Windows to interact, click to exit. This is indeed a special feature. I mean, that's really, I've never seen this before. This is genuinely a novel special feature. It's cool. I'm going to exit back to it before I get sick, but that was pretty cool. Overall, a very competent result, as one would expect, except for, of course, the elephant in the room, which was the 2D, 3D GTA. All right, so if you recall, I had started the C++ skateboard game from within OpenCode because it was going to take a little while, so it does have some follow-up questions as this was initiated within plan mode. And I've swapped this to build mode and told it to go ahead and build this self-contained skate simulator, so this will inevitably take a little bit of time. I suppose we'll wait for it to finish. I don't normally jump straight into, after the browser OS, the self-contained C++ script, but because this is a big closed source model, I would imagine it should produce something competent that will be fun to play. 2,350 lines of C++. I don't think I've ever seen a skate game result of this length. I've never seen a result that long. And now it's working agentically, of course, which is all the rage these days, as it's compiling and verifying it. We'll see if it's able to build it properly and if it compiles without any errors. And then if so, we should be able to just hop in and test it. All right, so it did get some compilation errors, so we'll have to go and fix these now. All right, this time it did compile properly. I mean, it might still try to do stuff, but we should basically be good to go now. All right, that is a curved palm tree. I've never... got quite a curve to the tree. Okay, so first thing I'm noticing is it's rather difficult to actually change direction, which is some of these, the trick logic here is very, very interesting. Good. Skate shop. I have to say, these are some of the more detailed buildings I've seen in this specific test. Does the skateboard have 6 wheels? No, those are the feet. Okay, you know, this is not half bad, especially for a first try result. Okay, the grind is pretty cool. Tattoo. All right, all right. Bail. So it did actually properly implement. Look at this, like from this view right here, this really isn't that bad. I think honestly something that may potentially be letting this down is the fact that the boardwalk is blue. If this was like a brown boardwalk with the little like asphalt look there, I think this would be a significant visual improvement. That was sick. I almost said an adult word there because I found that to be really quite cool. We basically did a front flip onto the rail. Bail, okay. Surf shop. And then is that just like an infinite? Oh no, okay, good. There are mesh colliders then. Let's go back the other way. I noticed now, actually, I haven't seen this before, the arms are moving separately, and even the NPCs, the way they're walking, now that I focus on that, we can see their legs are moving, their arms are swinging. So the trees, the curvature to the trees is pretty interesting. Usually, I feel like in a result like this, they'd just be straight lines, so I'm happy with this. I mean, obviously, there's things to be fixed, but for a first try, it's got some interesting graphics to it and skate logic and bail logic and things of the sort. Next up, I'm going to be giving it the beautiful static subway scene test. This is one I very much enjoy giving these models because aside from the Qwen3.6 27B dense like freak model that did an incredible job on this, this is a very big differentiation prompt I find where it tells a lot about the model's overall performance and the times I've done it. So this is benched against Opus 4.5, and I know Opus 4.5 would do an incredibly nice job on this specific task. So we'll see what we get, and then we'll also turn it into an FPS using this map as a basis for that. All right, our beautiful static subway scene result has concluded. This is not my day. So let's take a look at it. I see something dead center. It's just, oh, it's a piece of dirt on my screen, I think. Oh, nope. Okay, good. So you're going to know what I was looking at then that I did mistakenly think was dirt. Let's brighten this up as much as we can. Okay. Our movement is quite rapid. The lighting, the ceiling looks nice. We do have tiles on the floor. The wall has some detail to it as well. We have some almost like erroneous skid marks on the ground. And then we have the barrier to not cross. Basically, like from this angle, it looks all right. We have some signs and things. Did we just... Oh, okay, there's the outside of it. Can we go to the other outside? It's a decent starting point, but additionally to the follow-up that I always send it to basically turn this into an FPS, I also wanted to enhance the scene. So I've given it a follow-up to not only polish the scene and make it look better, I did specifically say make it Opus quality, but then turn it into a subway FPS with humanoid zombioid enemies and all of the normal things we ask for like ammo tracer, recoil effects, etc. Alright, based off of some of the follow-up things it mentioned here as implementing, this should be very, very impressive, so... Oh, darn it. It's too dark. I don't know what to do because I can't see anything, but it looks like it may potentially be very good. Oh. Oh, okay. It's going to take too long to have it fix the bright. I'm just going to fix the brightness manually and we'll pretend like it did it. Better. Good. Wow. The weapon model is well done. The subway car is very like subway-like. The sounds are interesting. And then, I mean, look at the actual, I've never seen anything that detailed in a weapon model. Look at the casings actually ejecting from it when you fire. This is actually pretty good. I will say, this is Opus style. Now, something Opus did that I've never seen a model do before, though it was Opus 4.7, is it actually showed where the ammunition would hit in the map. It would actually give it an effect. That's not the case here, but still. And we can go inside the subway car. This is a very nice looking subway car. Can we change our weapon? Okay, so it's 1 and 2 to switch weapons. So 2, and there's the pistol instead. And it's actually more realistic. So the weapons have realistic actual attributes based off of how they would be in real life. This has large potential. The way I mean, all right, I've probably spent far too much time on this, but I will say the thing that stuck out the most was definitely the shell casings being ejected while actually firing. I don't know that I've ever seen that implemented, and I did not specifically tell it to do that. So that was actually pretty cool. I'm going to close both of these because the fans are ramping up a bit. Our 2D result isn't going to cause that. So I know folks will sometimes say, well, they've probably like trained it to do well on these specific tests, which for that reason, I want to go to ultimateplay.com, which is of course my website where you can upload and test and upvote and play your AI generated games. I am specifically here because there is one prompt that I want to check, and this is for the low poly GP game, which GPT-5.4 Pro made, 5.5 Pro mode, which was one of the more impressive results I think I've ever seen from a model. But the specific reason that I want this prompt is because this prompt, I created this following the release of this Qwen3.6 Max Preview model, so it is impossible for this model to have ever seen this before. So we'll see how it does on this specific prompt. Additionally, it did include, okay, first and foremost, I'm a little concerned. Hopefully this start screen is not representative of the actual quality of the generated result. It did put little motorcycle emojis. We do have actual bios for the specific riders and things of the sort. These are all real bikes as well. I have ridden one of these, and we'll just go with Marco Rossi. Oh, that motorcycle model is so close to being really cool, except for the fact that, of course, the keen-eyed viewers amongst us may notice the wheels are sideways. Let's see, our first-person view. Okay, lean effects. Look at the track minimap. This looks more like a space bike sort of thing. Oh, did this prompt have track elevation in it? You know, I think that may be the case. And that's why the bike is acting weird. Now, the GPT result that I used for this as a reference prompt took 3 tries to actually produce something functional. Actually, a 4th was run as well because it kept putting buildings on the track. So what we're seeing that's going on right here is this track actually has elevation to it. Unfortunately, the face of the asphalt is not rendering, which is really letting things down. I know folks in the comments have specifically mentioned the cause for such a thing, but this is so potentially actually impressive. It's a letdown. We're going to need to remedy this. So I've given it a follow-up here just describing the issues and then telling it just remove the elevation, fix the asphalt rendering and all other issues. This is ultimately, as we see on Ultimate Play, what needed to happen for the GPT result as well. So this took 4 specific prompts to actually end up with this result. And we can see here, this was GPT-5.5 Pro mode, arguably one of the most performant existing publicly accessible models. So this took 4 specific tries to get it to this point, but from the first try, the models and everything looked good, but this had the same elevation glitch. So just something to note. All right, let's take a look at the supposedly fixed result. It has potential. It fixed the issue with the road not showing up. It's very arcade-like, I will say. We should have our first-person view, which we get right there. It's just frustrating. The wheel issue is letting it down big time, but the bike model is actually in and of itself not bad. I'm probably not going to have it fix this again because it it should have been able to fix it. I would think based on the feedback I gave it, at least about the bike model. So we can see there is actually NPC character lean. This is the first person view. The thing I am going to do is just take a quick peek at some of the other bike models here. Okay, so it seems they are all the same exact bike model. They're just different colors, which is fine. And then we have our questionable map. So I'm giving this the 3D printer simulation prompt, and I have just quickly added in right here. It must also be able to accept an uploaded STL and then print that item. Historically, that is a specific ask from within this test that I reserve for really high-end potent models, but I figure why not include it here, and we'll actually see what we get if this does have the ability to emulate the slicing of an uploaded file or an STL or a stereolithography file format and actually print out the simulated shape. All right, we have our 3D printer result. I am a little worried because it shows that it has fog implemented, and for those of you in the know, you may be familiar that oftentimes when the 3D printers have fog implemented, it makes them very difficult to see. That is not the case here, although may have helped. It's interesting because I'm going to notice a couple of things that are in fact good on first glance. This does actually seem to have a more or less kind of decent model of the extruder, to the point where we have the nozzle. We even have like the little Bamboo Lab looking thing where you can see it actually extruding. Additionally to that, I do see the spool connected to the nozzle, and then we have an additional thing there which is somewhat translucent, so that almost looks like a Bowden tube material, which is where the filament would be going through it. This is also the STL printer version, so first and foremost I'm just going to do the square printing. Okay, we seem to have some geometric issues, and that's something I've noticed in some of the 3.6 or 3.5 family of models, is some of the like geometry in which they render things, like with the motorcycle simulation with the tires, it's like not all there. And this is unfortunately one of those cases, which is really kind of disappointing because I was hopeful. Let's just upload the STL that I did download, which is the Benchy, which is the traditional little sailboat style thing that you may be familiar with seeing. Unfortunately, we're just not really having much luck here, and it would probably make it better if given the opportunity, but in the interest of like basically we can kind of assess what it would look like here. So it is unfortunate, and the STL upload function doesn't work on first glance. So being that this is not an open weights model, I am less inclined to give it a bunch of additional chances to fix things. So with that, I saw some things here that were perhaps promising, basically individual elements of this printer if judged independent of the scene as a whole. But unfortunately, the whole thing just didn't quite come together how I'd hoped. For our next test, we're going to be doing an agentic test using Python. However, this is going going to be slightly different than anything I've run before. This is a prompt I basically just vibe wrote, I guess could be said. So we're telling it is a Python desktop app engineer and UI designer. It's an expert. It needs to build a polished, high-end Tkinter desktop application that analyzes the network interfaces and network activity on the host machine it is running on, then presents the data in a premium visual dashboard. So we have a bunch of additional things here. I'm not going to read this through verbosely line by line, but I will leave it on the screen long enough for anyone interested to be able to probably just pause and read all of these specific metrics that this needs to touch upon. Additionally, and kind of the culmination of this is if we scroll down right here, we see that we must have some specific elements organized with specific names and things like that. Acceptance criteria: running Python main.py launches the GUI. The app displays local network interfaces. The app updates traffic rates live. The UI looks intentionally designed, not like a default Tkinter prototype. The app remains read-only and does not perform intrusive network activity. The code is clean, modular, and easy to extend. Deliver the completed project file. So I did just start it in an empty directory with this named instruct.txt. Okay, it's giving us some follow-up questions right here. I'm just going to do simple, so 1-minute time intervals. Should I include external theming library? And it's now time to just have it implement and build this. So it seems like this is partially functional because we do see there are some specifically updating metrics for both download, upload, active interfaces, and then total traffic right here. We do also have a specifically named list of all the available network interfaces on this machine. However, unfortunately, we don't have anything populated for the interface details, the real-time activity, or the 60-second traffic history. Now, obviously, this would need to be running for at least 60 seconds probably to update. So I will allow it to stay open for a little bit of time. However, I don't believe anything is actually really being populated down from here, which is a little frustrating, but it did do this properly in terms of actually finding the interfaces. And again, this is not a horrifically difficult task. It did also populate this README just for the specific things that it created. It tells us how to install the requirements, of which there's basically only one of them, which is already on the system. Additionally, how to run it, safety in terms of the safety of this, because it is a network thing. So there could be some Mythos alarms going off, if you will. Then we have our project structure. So I just wanted to showcase something in Python that was not just the low poly FPS in Python without using Ursina, though that is always an interesting test as well. I figured I'd switch it up slightly. Next up, we're going to do the virtual drum kit simulation test, where it should basically create, I would hope in 3D at this point, a drum kit, and this is also the variation of this that has the 4 specific autoplay selectable tracks, which it will autoplay if we select them. So we'll see how it does. All right, let's take a peek at this drum kit result. All right, so we did get some initial errors, some of which are not necessarily the model's fault, some of which are. So I'm going to just paste them back to it. So here's our hypothetically fixed drum kit simulation result. That looks really good. I was a little concerned that perhaps these would be arranged in a slightly disastrous way, but aside from the bass drum, they're not. Very good. If this was just pivoted the correct way, this would arguably be one of the higher end results I've seen for this. These symbols and everything look good. Again, I consistently make the mistake of actually starting to speak about this before testing these, which I need to stop doing. So with that, let's just see. Cool. And we even have the kick pedal. We have an effect. And interesting, it actually shows us in text what was pressed. Okay, curious. I've never actually seen that. Let's check all the sounds. Crash, crash, kick, crash. That could be interesting in the autoplay feature. U, good. I, D. We can do a Phil Collins test. Acceptable. That kind of slapped. And that wasn't the autoplay. That was just me. Classic rock. All right. Good looking UI in the autoplay. Can we play along with it? Yep. Got a little double bass drum going there. All right. That looks good. Jazz swing. I mean, yeah. Funk groove. no invite to the OpenAI party. Oh well, I didn't go, I won't be tardy. And finally, Metal Blast. Yep, 100%. That's like, my hands are naturally like just starting to go like this when. Yep. All right. You know what? I liked this. Aside from this jankness, the rest of this was quite well done. For the final test, I would like to test its front-end design capabilities on a previously unseen prompt. So we're basically telling it to create an agent website, a website for an insurance company that is designed to insure AI agents from costly mistakes in production. So we'll see what it does. This is basically just focused more on aesthetics. It tells it, do not deliver an undercooked result. If you think you have a good idea, assume it's bad and then go 10 times as hard on the design. And that was actually a slightly longer thinking process than I've seen for some of the previous results. So we'll get a feel for the front end chops. I am very curious to see, okay, this is very kind of like panic inducing. Now, I do believe the prompt specifically kind of tells it to make it seem like the businesses like need this emergency service. The scrolling ticker here that is almost akin to some form of stock thing is an interesting design decision. We have 847 agent incidents reported this week. I will say the hero font and like this specific section right here, this is genuinely like, I plug this on the channel pretty frequently. This was not one of those times. It genuinely reminds me like eerily similar of my website. Like these are like of the same family or genome, if you will. So your AI agents will make mistakes. Who pays when they do? From leaked emails to deleted DBs, AI agent errors cost businesses an average of $2.1 million per incident. AgentSafe is the first insurance platform built exclusively for agent risk. Now, I did look this up after I'd run this prompt for the first time a couple days ago, and I do think there are businesses already doing this, which does kind of make sense. We have some fake statistics here: 142 million in claims paid out, 99.7 claim approval rate. I probably would just delete that and just have these two be the hero statistics. When agents go rogue, the costs are catastrophic in red. Email leak to customer lists, average cost 1.8 to 4.2 mil, accidental DB deletion, a significantly higher cost, unauthorized pricing and discount, and we have some hover effects and some associated emojis on each of these cards. Oh no. Interactive simulator. Experience an agent disaster in real time. Select a scenario and watch the damage unfold. This is what happened in minutes when an AI agent goes off the rails. This is actually interesting. So is this going to fake emulate like the... So it's actually showing a real emulation of an agent going off the rails and causing agent safe coverage activated. Oh, this is like the kind of slop you'll see when these things do become like more commonly seen as a software as a service, or the V insurance as a service. I have no idea. Pricing chaos. Okay. And I want to just make sure that the fake terminal agent off the rails things are specifically associated with the selected card. They are. Social media, everything is at 1 cent at redacted. Payment processor flagging unusual activity. Incident summary, orders at wrong price, 18,400, 1.8 million loss. This is actually pretty well done, I am going to say, because the prompt does kind of tell it like to use like quote unquote scare tactics to get people wanting to buy this. Uninsured versus agent safe protected. I'm going to say the use of like lime green hero text versus red versus orange versus blue. I would like to see perhaps a more consistent color scheme across the block text. Cumulative incident costs over 12 months. Okay. And we have some nice charts and things like this. Protect in 4 simple steps. Okay. Coverage that scales with your agents. Very good. We have a pricing card thing. Citadel, Fortress, Shield. Okay. Customer stories. They learned the hard way. Now they're covered. Our customer service agent started promising 90% refunds to angry customers. Calculate your risk exposure. So we have a risk exposure calculator. A calculator. I don't know why I said it like that. Good. Very interactive, and interactive like things are part of this prompt as well. Don't wait for disaster. This is a very good front end, I do believe. Again, front ends are very subjective, but I do believe this is a good one. The different colors across the large text was perplexing, but I would say the actual emulation of an agent causing a financial disaster is very well done. So Not bad, not bad. This overall, I found it to be fairly strong in certain places, but also preview-like in others. Mainly the specific ability to like draw 3D assets in a world space still seems to need some work, as we saw with the motorcycle game, as well as what we saw with the 3D printer simulation, which was a little disappointing. The drum kit was actually pretty good, except for the kick drum and the kick drum pedal. The bikes obviously were just, again, potential, and this must be the initial result here that does not have the asphalt. But the wheels had the issue and things like that. That was frustrating. The 2D GTA clone was a master class in ignoring the prompt, but still making something that was funny. So again, that was, I don't know what to say. The browser OS in general was well done. Though, the thing that I did very, very much like is Subway Dead. This was sick. It had the sounds, and again, the bullet casings ejecting from the weapon. I've never seen that. And we actually had different weapon models, which were realistic. The subway car looked good. The sounds were weird, but like, I mean, that's pretty cool. So I was impressed with this. This definitely showed a little bit of like big model smell to it, if you will. Additionally to that, again, as we just went over it, our front end, I was very pleased with the front end design style here, perhaps because it eerily reminded me of my own Ultimate Play website, but it was still kind of cool. We also had the skate simulator in C++. Now, again, this was a somewhat troubled result, but I would say the pieces were there, and this again kind of showed some of its oddities and like actually seemingly drawing things in like a coordinate plane. You know what I mean, like what we saw with the printer, where it was there, but like some of the things were odd, though it did a nice job with the actual people, the NPC emojis, I should say, because they had movements, their legs move, their arms move when they walk. Even the skateboarder model actually has moving arms and things of the sort. The trees were interesting, the way they actually had like realistic looking bends to them, just not something I had expected. So this again had some perhaps like a little bit of big model smell to it, if you will. Then we had our Python test, which, I mean, it did work. It satisfied the core requirements, but I didn't really see any additional information beyond just some like pertinent in the moment network statistics and whatever else we happen to run, which does seem to elude me at this present moment, but I am a little tired. So with that, that is going to overall conclude our first look and test of Qwen3.6 Max Preview. Again, this is a model that remains closed source, so this is to be compared, in my opinion, to other closed source models and not things that are open weight. So therefore, make of that what you will, but at the same time, this is still in preview. And as we saw with the Qwen 3.627B dense model, that model's like a freak of nature. And I'm not specifically just judging that based on the tests that I published of that model. If you look online, like in the local LLM subreddit and places like that, where folks are using that model locally, it is getting praised across many different worlds or spheres of talking about AI. So the ability of this model to change once it comes out of preview, and they mentioned it was still in like an early preview, so it'll be interesting to see how this evolves. It could definitely potentially turn into something pretty impressive, I would have to say. So that's going to wrap it up. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments, and thanks for watching.